Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Ask Dr. Dansinger with Dr. Michael Dansinger, world-renowned diabetes reversal expert, also an expert on artery health. If you have questions about your diet and improving the inflammation in your arteries, reducing your A1C, make sure you do join us every single week right here on youtube.com/, the @ sign, the way to my heart, or the @ sign Michael Dansinger, MD. So make sure to check it out. Also, go to diabetesreversalpartners.com if you live in Minnesota, Virginia, New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, or Florida, because his services for diabetes reversal are covered under Medicare and Medicare Advantage PPO plans. So you got to check those out. We have so many questions, Dr. Dansinger, that have come our uh, into our network today about diet. I know some you've answered before, but we do have quite a few. We also have our live studio audience. Make sure people, if you want to join the live studio audience, make sure to email info@padhelp.org. Okay, Dr. Danziger, just anything. We've talked a lot about the food pyramid, the new food pyramid, and any new insights that you've learned along the way, any new perspectives, anything that you've seen since that came out, just to kick things off?
Great question. The food pyramid is sort of the nutrition news of the month. It came out in January, and I think we'll be hearing more um, conversations about it in February and March, but the initial excitement I think is starting to simmer down a little bit, and so you'll get nutrition experts who give it a grade as high as an A or as low as a D, and
Oh
I've given
gosh.
it an A minus, but it's definitely a polarizing food pyramid. And what I'd like is more consensus as possible, but we're not going to get that.
No, I think a lot of the negativity is just purely political, and they think that this one in particular is bought and paid for. Although I haven't quite seen who it's bought and paid for by versus the previous pyramid. It was pretty well known where the money was coming from, and it's always disconcerting. You always wonder. You have to wonder. It's good to ask questions, but we've had now four different doctors like yourself that have come out and said, hey, we're at least going to give it an A minus or above. And we even had a vascular surgeon, Dr. Lily Johnston, who also rated it very high. Her concern, though, with this food pyramid is just simply that it's made for healthy people, not people who have chronic illnesses. And she still suggests that if you are someone who has a chronic illness, that you do need to talk to your doctor, you do need to talk to your own dietitian or nutritionist to have it customized for your particular body to make sure that you are optimized for treating whatever disease you might have. Would you agree?
100% absolutely, yes. So this is not a individualized prescription, and now I think most people are sophisticated enough to recognize that different people are different people, and that we what's true for one person isn't necessarily true for another. And so this is not individualized nutrition advice, but it's aimed to help the public think about nutrition in a better way. And I think it helps accomplish that.
Okay, we have so many questions that have come in. I think there are like 16 that have come in. We have one from Jody. What is the best diet to follow to help with PAD?
It's such a great question. What's the best diet? 25 years ago, I tried to actually answer the question like, what's the best diet for heart health and cardiovascular disease prevention, which is very similar to the question, what's the best diet for PAD? And so I think the science is very clear that there's no one best diet. And so I hate to give such an answer, but there are many good eating strategies for PAD and cardiovascular disease and artery health, et cetera. And they all have pluses and minuses. There's no best diet, but there's many good diets that have pros and cons. Um, if you ask, a panel of many experts, they'll generally land on the Mediterranean diet is the best diet for PAD. I don't think it's as simple as that. But if you're looking for a one word answer, the Mediterranean diet seems to match up with what many experts would recommend.
And I'm going to quote you, the best diet is the diet you stick with.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. It's my own research that came out in JAMA magazine in 2005 that really drove home the point that the best eating strategy is what you can stick with. Thank you, Kim.
Okay, so Michelle, we know good fats are good, but is it when someone has fatty liver? Can you have these good fats?
Great question. So when it comes to fats, there are definitely some fats that are worse than others when it comes to artery health. You know, and the best fats come from fish, and especially wild fish. And the worst fats are the ones that um, are palmitic acid. That's a saturated fat that has 16. It's a chain length of 16, and that 16, the palmitic acid is the worst, and so it inflames the arteries, and so the best fats have low amounts of that, and the best fats um, minimize that. So that's one way of answering it. The other way is you want fats that are foods that have um, the least amount of saturated fats from meat and dairy.
Okay, and is there any sort of misconception about fatty liver and fats?
Well, when when you have fatty liver, the fatty liver is very sensitive to dietary carbohydrates. And so a
Mm.
fatty liver turns sugar and starch into that unhealthy fat. And that unhealthy fat, especially that palmitic acid, gets into the bloodstream. And so eating sugar and starch is similar to eating saturated fat. When you don't have fatty liver, and let's say at least half of Americans have some degree of fatty liver. It's not whether you have it or not, but how much you have. So if you just look at your abdomen and say, "Does it look like I've got extra fat in my abdomen?" Then that's the main risk factor for whether you have fatty liver or not. So eating sugar and starch turns into fats, especially in people with fatty liver.
Okay, so sticking on the liver topic, Crystal says she had high liver enzymes, ended up not eating red meat at all. Enzymes have been fine now for the past 8 years, but we have her question along with others that are asking just about the health of red meat in general. It just has such a stigma.
It's a great important question. So let me let me say, when you have fatty liver, losing weight is the best way to get the fat out of the liver, and by cutting down on calories, especially from sugar and starch, that that's the best way to help reverse the fatty liver. Now, red meat, like all foods, is a complex mixture, and just like there's no one per every all the people we know are a complex mixture of different traits, right? And so foods also are complex mixes of different traits. Some are helpful for health and others are not. So when it comes to red meat, I what I like about it is it's got protein. It's a great source of protein. It tastes delicious for most people. What I don't like about it is it has saturated fat, and what I like, it's if especially if the cow has been eating grains. If the cow has been eating grass throughout its life, then the saturated fat is a different mix, and it doesn't make it necessarily, entirely, you know, it still has saturated fat in it. But when the meat is lean, like 95% lean, I think that's when it starts to become helpful for artery health rather than counterproductive. So red
Okay.
meat's okay. It's got to be lean though.
Okay, good. So we have Mike, who's here in the live studio audience. I know he has quite a few questions. And so, Mike, I'm going to give the floor to you.
Just hi, Doctor. Hi, Kim as well. Just I was just thinking about going back to the Mediterranean diet. I've bought an actual recipe book and stuff, and I've noticed that there's a lot of eggs and like potatoes and red meat in within the Mediterranean diet. And is that okay? Is if you're going to follow that diet, are you not doing any kind of harm or anything? With that. Or is it just like you say with the lean meats and make sure that the grass fed and so yeah, and there's a lot of rice in there as well. I've noticed.
Okay, so it's a great question. You want something, personalized to you. That's what you're asking about. And so features of so features of the Mediterranean diet that I think are generally helpful for PAD and cardiovascular health: fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables. What I like about the Mediterranean diet is it's a whole foods diet. It
Mm,
really is strong at avoiding, processed, you know, uh, Americanized foods. Um, it has fish and seafood, so all those things are good. It has small amounts of poultry, and it really
mm,
gets away from animal fat, from meat and dairy. So those are all many strengths of the Mediterranean diet. For some people who are trying to lose weight, they have to be careful with the amount of olive oil that they're eating
mm,
because there's a lot of calories in olive oil. You have to be concerned about the quality of the olive oil. But the Mediterranean diet is well known as a high amount of olive oil, and so you want to make sure there's quality and don't overdo it if you're trying to, on the olive oil, if you're trying to lose weight. It can be
yeah,
starchy, and so, in the Mediterranean, um, there's starch based on whole grains, and for blood sugar control, I'm concerned about starch, and so the version of the Mediterranean diet I like has lots of vegetables, moderate
yeah.
amounts of lean, healthy protein, plenty of fish and seafood, and I'm not a big advocate of the red wine that is so ubiquitous in the Mediterranean diet. So those are
Yeah.
You're no fun, Dr. Dansinger.
And just a second question. So when you buy a packet of chips, like what we call them crisps in England, I've noticed because I'm back in the UK at the moment that some crisps have got baked, not fried. Is baked chips all right? Or is there a certain amount of stuff in that as well that could do problems to your artery? Instead of being fried type thing. I just
it's a lot of people wonder the same thing. So I would say yes, baked is better than fried. Fried is deep fried. There's a lot of, usually in some kind of industrial oil, and baked is going to have less fat in general. That's why they do it. But
okay.
having said that, it's it's you're taking a food that might get an F and now bringing you up to the level of a D or a C minus. So
Okay.
That's not what you wanted to hear, Mike.
No, because I've just bought a packet. Just quickly show you. It says in the bottom
yeah,
corner, baked, not fried, in the
yes,
bottom corner.
Don't you
So,
love those marketing ploys, Dr. Dansinger?
so I'll just quickly comment and then we'll move to the next. There are almost all packages of unhealthy foods are going to have little messaging about, they're putting their best foot forward, and they might say, you know there's vitamins in here, or the so many marketers will, um, promote the health, what it is about the all these foods are a mix, and so
mm,
just because, don't get fooled into thinking that something
okay.
has, it's easy when we like the taste of something to, um, wish as a result of wishful thinking,
Uh,
get tricked
yeah,
into eating
yeah.
stuff. So it might say low sodium or, vitamin C or who knows what, but you know, those crisps are
It's not
really
always what it says on the tin, type of
it's a
thing.
C minus.
Yeah,
This could
yeah.
be better than an F. Okay, what else?
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
like, okay, so we have quite a few questions from Janice, who answered her question about the Mediterranean diet. What's the worst food for plaque formation?
That's a great question. What's the worst food for plaque formation? So I saw this question was coming, and if you ask different people, you'll get a different answer. I'm going to pick a double cheeseburger as a great example of a bad food. But like I said, we're all a mix, so all foods are a mix. So what I don't like about a double cheeseburger starts with the bun, the white bun. And then if you took the white bun off of the cheeseburger, you're left with a couple of beef patties and some American cheese and some ketchup and maybe some pickles. And so because the meat and the cheese has saturated animal fat, especially that 16 chain, that raises LDL, and it also stiffens arteries and cell membranes, and that's counterproductive. But if you make the meat lean, and if you use lower fat cheese, or if you get rid of the cheese, and um, so it is possible to take many versions of traditionally unhealthy foods and sort of make them less bad. But the best part of a cheeseburger might actually end up being the lettuce or the tomato or the pickle that's in there. So you could say that sausage pizza is a particularly bad choice. You could say that even homemade lasagna, if it's got sausage, cheese, and white pasta in there, all those would be these combinations of animal fat plus starch are especially the worst, I think.
Okay, so is dark chocolate unhealthy for people with PAD? Another one for Janice.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to say the short answer is no, but it's if you want a more sophisticated answer, I'm going to use this dark chocolate example as another way to emphasize the point that all foods are a mix. And so whether it's an apple or cheddar cheese or dark chocolate, you can find favorable and unfavorable things mixed in together in the same food. In dark chocolate, I'm saying it's good. What I like about it is it's got antioxidants in there, and those have real benefits on the arteries. And what I don't like about it is the sugar in there or the saturated fat that is in chocolate. And so that saturated fat in chocolate is not as bad as the saturated fat in meat and dairy, but it's still there. And so overall, I'll give dark chocolate a B plus. And if you're asking about cocoa powder, I would give that an A plus because you've removed the sugar and the fat.
You mean cacao, not regular cocoa with
Ca-
sugar. Cacao.
Cacao, yes, or
Okay,
just powdered, cocoa
cocoa with
powder that is just
without
pure
sugar.
powdered,
Okay.
right? Without, right. You're right.
And so is stevia true or Truvia unhealthy for PAD?
No, I think of all the sugar alternatives, that would be my top choice. I think it's fine. And what I like about it is it helps people to cut down on the amount of sugar. And so, is it as healthy as eating spinach? No, but it has a different purpose. So I think it's fine. There are many other things to worry about than um, using that to help provide the sweetness that you're looking for without using sugar.
Okay, so Cindy also has a terrible sweet tooth, she says, tries to satisfy it with fruit, but notices it will actually trigger even more sweet cravings. Are there any fruits that are better than others, alternative foods? She's given up on breads and all of that jazz. She's trying to eat well. Quinoa is about the only grain she eats, without triggering any of the cravings for more sugar or more breads or more grains. Um, she usually limits those grains though to once a day. Some are suggesting that berries are really good for her. What do you think?
It's a great question. The bigger question is, many of us have kind of a addiction to sugar. So how do you deal with that? And so for carbohydrate addiction in general, cutting down on the amount of carbohydrate definitely helps, especially sugar. When you get the sugar out of your system, it helps break that cycle of craving it. And you might have to go through a week's worth or a couple weeks worth of quote with withdrawal, sugar withdrawal. So cutting way down. I like the strategy of using fruit to help people eat less candy. Think of it like nature's candy. And of all the fruits, I think berries are a top choice. I like citrus fruits as well, or um, you know, fruits that um, berries are the best. So um, it is possible to eat too many berries, but if that there's a lot worse problem than eating too many berries. So um, fruits for the most part are good for artery health. If you have type 2 diabetes and have a high hemoglobin A1C, you do have to control yourself when it comes to fruit. So I'm in agreement.
And she also wants to know how many meals a day are recommended for those over 65.
How many meals a day? Well, the short answer is three: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for many people, they're having two meals, like a brunch and an early dinner, and that's perfectly fine too. What other people do is they have, four or five or six half meals. And some people are just sort of grazers. And I think what's most important is rather than me giving a number and saying three is the best, it has to be individualized to the person. What you're If you're looking to lose weight, you do have to reduce calories, and whatever strategy is going to help you eat healthier and reduce the total daily calorie average is what you want. And so for some people, skipping breakfast is really counterproductive. For other people, eating a bigger breakfast would in itself would be counterproductive. So I'm that's just the way it is. I'm sorry I can't give you a clear answer like one, two, or three.
So Sarah is getting some conflicting information from different doctors. She just doesn't feel like her doctors are on the same page. She has multiple health issues and she has a problem absorbing nutrients. She doesn't say exactly which nutrients. And she says her doctors are telling her to eat more eggs, cheese, and dairy. And she thought they were bad for the PAD diet. So, how do you balance all of this conflicting information and where does she turn?
It's a great question. It's a complex question. To say that you have you're getting conflicting nutrition advice is how most Americans feel. So you're not alone. And so, and here I make it more complicated by saying there's many good eating strategies. They all have pros and cons. So one good eating strategy for some people really does emphasize meat, cheese, and eggs. And the trade-off is to eat like that, you have to cut your carbohydrates very low, and so people are doing a ketogenic Atkins type eating strategy, which does focus on meat, cheese, and eggs. And although it's counterintuitive for many experts, the research results show and many people can improve their health, especially their weight and their diabetes, by focusing on meat, cheese, and eggs. My concern with an eating strategy like that is there's a lot of saturated animal fat from meat and dairy in there, and that can raise bad LDL, bad cholesterol, and stiffen arteries. So I don't like it in people with PAD and known cardiovascular disease. But there are ways to make that a low carb eating strategy, less animal fat, and so other people would say the way to keep your arteries healthy is to do something that's more vegan and stay entirely away from animal fat and focus on whole foods, fruits and vegetables, and whole grains. And that's a perfectly good eating strategy too. They all have pros and cons. They're all difficult to follow. So I'm sorry, I can't quite clear it up, but that's the general idea.
Okay, so Stacy has a couple questions. Is pork okay to eat if you have PAD? And then she's also asking, is food better cooked in an air fryer?
Okay, so pork, I'm going to say if you want a one word answer, yes, I think pork is fine, but it's got to be super lean. You want 95% lean or leaner. And so, for example, pork tenderloin, I think, is a great example of food that I think is helpful for health for many people when it's lean and when it doesn't have a whole lot of salt and preservatives and other stuff. Ham is an example of another mixed food. So ham is usually lean. It's usually 95% lean or leaner. That's what I like about it. A lot of my patients are including ham in there because it's quick and easy to eat and it tastes good. And but what I don't like about it is the salt in there, and there's nitrates and nitrites, etc. So ham is a mix, and then the worst pork things are like bacon and sausage. So if pork is lean, then it's helpful, and you can try to put it on a spectrum. And so um, it can work for you, but only under the right circumstances. And
Okay, a
then
little bit of
the
a speed
question,
round.
oh,
Oh,
the
go
other
ahead.
half of the question, just remind me what the other half of the question was.
Are foods healthier in an air fryer?
Oh, air fryer. Yeah, I think that's a good way to add flavor and texture without adding as much fat as you would normally use. And so I think it helps keep the calories low. So tofu in an air fryer, for example, I think works very well. So yes, air fryer can be really a helpful tool.
Okay, Marie wants to know about what other fish. She always hears you talking about salmon, but she does not like the taste of salmon.
Mhm.
What other fish is less fishy that she could eat?
That's less fishy. Okay, so cod might be a great example of a nice light, flaky white fish, or haddock, or if you can get your hands on halibut or trout. And so there's probably about 10 kinds of fish that many people could list, including tuna or snapper. So, in any fish you can get in a can in your supermarket, some people actually like the sardines or some of the um, other types of canned fish, mackerel. And so, if you happen to be one of the people who likes that kind of stuff or herring, you're in good shape. Feel free to eat those things.
Okay, we have two more questions here. We have one from Ken. With PAD, what is the best food to eat to gain weight without adding sugar to the diet? Lost 30 pounds 2 years ago after I discovered I had PAD due to no sugar consumption. Then another 5 pounds at 175 pounds, like to get to 190. So he wants to now gain a healthier weight, that's a little bit more after losing all his sugar weight.
Yeah. So healthy fats from nuts, avocados, um, olive oil are all good ways, and then fish, especially fatty fish. Those are all good ways, I think, to help put on some weight, but it's important to also eat protein and to lift weights to add muscle. So when you combine healthy fats and proteins with weight bearing exercise, that's the best way to put weight back on. You don't want to just put on abdominal fat and have a, flim that can you could be lean and still have fatty liver.
Okay, we have a very important question next. This is one that we're going to end on, and I don't want this taken lightly. Phil is having an upcoming surgery, and he is told because he has high blood sugar, 18.5 A1C, his doctor could refuse to perform the surgery. And he wants to know, why does blood sugar have an effect on surgery? And you and I dealt with this with our friend Diana. And that's when her doctor called and said, hey, this blood is thick and syrupy, and it's just not workable. Can you describe to Phil and to others out there why it's critical to get the A1C down?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, an A1C that's over 15, and this one is a special. This matches up with blood sugars that are generally well over 400. You want an A1C closer to 7 if you can, or 6 would be even better. But it would be routine for surgeons to want the diabetes under better control before doing any kind of non-emergency surgery, and so that should be expected for a surgeon to say, wait a minute, we got to fix the blood sugar. So why is high blood sugar such a problem? Well, a couple of things come up right away. First of all, the after sur- right after surgery and during surgery, a person is especially prone to infection, and your immunity is really impaired by high blood sugar. The white blood cells, which are crucial to the immune system, just don't work properly when the blood sugar is high. It kind of blinds the white blood cells. They don't know where to go. They can't see where they're going. The other thing is healing. And so you need your blood sugar to be normal for your healing to work properly, which also includes the immune system. And so um, your diabetes really raises the risk of poor healing and infection associated with surgery. Also, it does thicken the blood. You can just think of corn syrup as an example of a thick syrupy liquid, and so when the blood sugar gets to a certain point, it can thicken the blood like that, and you want your blood to be flowing, not so thick. So three good reasons why surgeons get real nervous about uncontrolled diabetes when there's surgery.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dansinger. We appreciate it. And if you're having trouble getting your A1C down, make sure to join us every single Monday right here, live in studio. Email us at info@padhelp.org. We'll get you in studio. You have Dr. Dansinger here with office hours every single week to offer you diet support. And we also have a book, Food for Thought. You can get it on Amazon, no matter what country you're in. We also have a digital version. You can email us again at info@padhelp.org, and we'll get you that digital version for free. But thank you so much, Dr. Danziger. If you're here in the US, you can definitely take advantage of Dr. Danzinger's services at diabetesreversalpartners.com. If you're in Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, or Florida. So definitely check it out. Medicare and Medicare Advantage PPO.